how things are going to unfold. And when we become apologists for the Harper government, it is most annoying, most annoying. So I believe we have to get the community involved, that we have to really stand up to Ottawa, and that has to be more than one letter being written. It has to be a real involvement from the community. And we on this side of the House are very, very concerned, and we, Madam Speaker, will now adjourn debate on this issue. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to have had the opportunity to speak for a couple of moments on something very dear to my heart. Thank you.
He moved. Recognize the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to say a few words on Resolution 752. Allow me to say that while we're all concerned about trying to find new employment opportunities for Louisbourg and all of Cape Breton, may I suggest we may want to make work project to build a statue or a monument to the member for Pictou East, because Mr. Speaker, for anyone to stand in this House and to self-proclaim that they've done more than anyone else, I think is a bit disingenuous, to say the least. And when people talk about playing politics, I don't think there's a better example of that than what we just heard from the member for Pictou East. And what's ironic is that when you listen to how he's saying writing a letter is not enough, standing in the House is not enough, I'm wondering what his Minister of Fisheries is thinking while he's saying that, because while he stands in the House and talks about the owner-operator policy that cuts DEI and his concerns, when we said let's have an all-party delegation go to Ottawa and deliver the message in person, we're still waiting for the phone call from that minister. So may I suggest to you, Mr. Speaker, that this government's bark is much worse than its bite, because they seem to be more than happy to be in their little safe place here in the legislature to throw shots out and say how concerned they are, but when it comes to taking real action, we see something completely different from this government. And let me give an example. I know they've mentioned the Minister of Tourism, and allow me to help him out as well, because when you're talking about how the cuts affect the museum and the fortress over in Louisbourg, maybe the member from Pictou East and the member from Lunenburg also want to talk to the Minister of Tourism to see what the devastating impact that this government's cuts to the student employment program is having on community museums throughout this province. When we left office, and I know the Minister of Finance likes for us to give him numbers, so let me give him a number. When our government left office in 1999 in Richmond County, there were 48 student employment positions just from the province in my riding. This year, under this NDP government, there are 11. So 48 to 11. We have museums that are now wondering whether they'll even be able to open their doors because of the fact that this government has made so many reductions to student employment program. So if this government is truly sincere about their concerns for Louisbourg and concerns for museums in this province, then maybe they should have a discussion with their Minister of Tourism, Rural Development and Economic Development, because I can tell you that that's certainly having a major impact on my riding and the many important community museums that we have. Now, Madam Speaker, allow me to say that it's disappointing, because when the mayor for Pictou East has self-proclaimed himself as the savior of Louisbourg and has done more than anyone else, more than the French or the British troops or anyone else, we'll have to add him into our history books in our schools, if we still have schools after the cuts made by this government, but we'll certainly have to look to amend that. But the fact that he would stand in this House and chastise the member for Cape Breton West after he gave the numbers, because I have to say, when the cuts were made, when this government eliminated the Yarmouth Ferry, if someone had told me it was going to have such an impact on Cape Breton Island, I wouldn't have believed it. But it's only once a study was made and that the tourism industry in Cape Breton Island told us, by the way, 40% of all bus traffic to Cape Breton Island came via that Yarmouth Ferry. Wow. So I can tell you, I'm not from Pictou, I'm from Cape Breton, and I knew that stat. Obviously, this government, when they made their decision to cut the Yarmouth ferry, wasn't thinking about Cape Breton. It certainly wasn't thinking about Yarmouth, and it wasn't thinking about eastern Nova Scotia, where his riding is as well, considering this bus traffic. Madam Speaker, there is no question that Fortress Louisbourg is an icon for Cape Breton. It's an icon for our province, an icon for our country. And I can say that it has certainly a significant value to the history of my own family. Because the Sampson brothers, there were actually two brothers that came from Normandy and sailed over and went to Quebec. One of the brothers stayed in Quebec, but the other brother, Gabriel, came to Louisbourg and fished out of Louisbourg for a number of years before making his way over to Petit de Gras, Île-Madame, in Richmond County. And from there, the Sampson family grew. Now, I'm not sure if Gabriel Sanson back then would have been aware of the contributions of the member for Pictou-East to the community of Louisbourg, but we'll see if we can amend some of our family history to put a little note in there as well to make sure he does get some recognition for that. Maybe we owe our own family history to the member for Pictou-East, so we'll have to look at that as well. But, Madam Speaker, as was mentioned by the member for Cape Breton West, the Fortress has been a major employer throughout Cape Breton Island, and I know many of my constituents over the years have been employed there. In fact, a number of them still are full-time employees over at the Fortress, because many of the employees at Louisbourg come from the communities of Richmond County and especially from Shetty because of their ability to speak French. So they continue to be a major employer. In fact, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, that my sister worked there for a number of summers while attending university because of the fact that she was able to give tours in both languages, and in English and in French. And certainly Louisbourg was very close to us. And as was mentioned by the member for Cape Breton West, I know many of the youth in my area go through their summer program as animators there, especially from l'École Beauport in Arishat, which is the Acadian school, because of the fact that they speak French and they go there for the summer. Their parents usually end up bringing a camper. They take up accommodation. So we're all being part of the economic development that takes place there and the benefits that come from that. Madam Speaker, as well, one would note, and I'm sure the member for Cape Breton West knows, that a significant sector of the tourists that do come from Louisbourg are from Quebec, because the people of Quebec has such a rich history and such a knowledge of their history that it's not uncommon to see many license plates from Quebec making their way down to Louisbourg to appreciate the history that's there and to know that many of their own families' first arrival to North America would have been via the Fortress of Louisbourg. And again, one has to question how much is being done by our province to market Fortress Louisbourg over in the province of Quebec, which continues to send so many tourists here to the province of Nova Scotia. But, Madam Speaker, I would be remiss if I did not join in my colleague from Cape Breton West and my colleague from Cape Breton South in saying that for us to be here tonight, the government having called the hours from 4 to 10 p.m. to be talking about a resolution when you have 28 bills introduced by the official opposition. I haven't counted how many, but I know there is at least a couple of dozen coming from the Conservative caucus as well, Progressive Conservative caucus. And the question being for those who are watching tonight is that, has the government run out of business? Well, they have. Is there a reason why the government is not calling opposition business? Well, I would submit to you, Madam Speaker, that if anyone needs an example of the arrogance of a majority NDP government, tonight is it. And bad enough that they really have no business to talk about, but when they are, the member from Pictou-East wanted to adjourn the business and prevent any further discussion on this. So fortunately, Madam Speaker, I did have the opportunity to say a few words, and I have to say, Madam Speaker, is that Nova Scotians right now are looking to us for leadership. They're looking for someone to stand up to talk about the devastating impact cuts to education are having throughout our province in our classrooms. They're looking for leadership on who is going to stand up to the millionaires over at Nova Scotia Power and to say enough's enough, we expect fair rates in this province. They're looking for leadership to explain why does Nova Scotia have the highest taxes in the entire country, with the HST having been increased by this government to 15%. Those are some of the few issues that Nova Scotians are looking for leadership for. And is there business that could be called dealing with those matters? We have 28 pieces of legislation that affect the lives of Nova Scotians that they would have hoped that a responsible government, even under its majority, would have at least allowed us to have debate on those pieces of legislation. Because, Madam Speaker, no party and no government has a monopoly on good ideas. And Nova Scotians expect this chamber to be the place where we can exchange those ideas. We may not always agree, but we should at least be able to put our ideas forward, to debate them, and to have a vote on them. And we have tried to do that. On our opposition days, we have continually brought forward legislation only to watch government members talk it out and not even allow it to come to a vote. Madam Speaker, that's not the way democracy should work. And I would question many of those elected for the first time in 2009 if this really is what they expected from a majority NDP government, to basically tell the opposition, you're irrelevant. As far as we're concerned, even though we represent almost half of this House, to be told your ideas are not going forward, Nova Scotians are not going to have the opportunity to hear a debate on them, they're not going to have the opportunity to see the House vote on them. That's certainly not why I believe many of them put their names on the ballot. But that is the reality that we have under this majority government. So tonight, it looks like debate may be coming to a close, even though we have all sorts of legislation that we could be talking about and that we could be putting forward as solutions and ideas to deal with the problems facing Nova Scotians. That opportunity rests in the hands of the government House Leader, because under the British parliamentary system, other than on our opposition days, we cannot call our legislation, we cannot demand that it be brought to a vote. We are powerless when it comes to that. It is strictly in the hands of the government House Leader to determine whether any opposition business will be considered or will be brought to a vote. This session seems to be coming near the end, and it saddens me that this session, not one piece of opposition business has made it past second reading, even though you have over 30 bills, almost 40 bills presented by the opposition. Now, if that is not an example of the arrogance of this government, I cannot think of a better one. Nova Scotians are not better off for that, Madam Speaker. They are poorer for that. And Nova Scotians are seeing now that what the NDP asked for in opposition and what they are delivering under government are two vastly different things, and I would submit to you our province is not better off because of that. Right. Merci.
Is there a motion to adjourn debate? Recognize the honourable member for Pictou East to adjourn debate.
Madam Speaker, I would call for an adjournment of debate. I move.
Well, actually, yeah, that's my error. The honourable member has already spoke to this resolution. The honourable member for Argyle.
Thank you very much, and while I'm at it, I'll speak for a few moments as well. I think the member for Richmond had a lot of the issues completely correct, and why we're here again this evening. You know, it's 6:15, so we're 2 hours into the session today. What we've seen over the last number of weeks, we've seen the longest days we've done as being the opposition days, where they are a set time of 4 hours. And I think that's a shame. The member from Richmond was also very correct when it came to working with opposition, finding the good ideas that are held within the bills that are held on this list that could be good ideas. I mean, heck, at this point, even if the government would steal the idea and put it in their own bill, would be a far better way than we've been over the last couple of sessions in accepting or working with the opposition in order to help out the different areas in Nova Scotia. This resolution, again, today, is one that concerns us, one that we've done our work in dealing with the federal government. You heard the member for Cape Breton West talk about what was important for his community and how that he can work with those individuals to make sure that Cape Breton West, Louisbourg, and all those areas will remain strong. And when we have a strong Cape Breton, we of course have a strong Nova Scotia. So it's important for my constituents in Argyle and in southwestern Nova Scotia, just like they are in reverse. never again in my time here at the House of Assembly. I know some of you are of my vintage of 9 years, and I'm sure that you can't pick a day that we were discussing resolutions on a government business day. I would love to ask someone to go back and look at it, but I know that would be a bit of a waste of time for us. You know, so what's going to happen next, Madam Speaker, as I finish up, is what we're going to happen next is that the acting deputy or the deputy House Leader for the government will stand, and he'll probably end up calling speech and reply and speech to the throne.
When was that speech?
That speech was now, what, 6 weeks ago?
April 30th?
You know, April 30th, somewhere's around there. So we're still going to be replying to it at this point. Madam Speaker, is nothing more than trying to make it look like the government is working. And with those few words, I adjourn debate on this resolution.
The motion is to adjourn debate on Resolution 752. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That concludes the government business for today. I would move that the House do rise to meet again tomorrow at noon, with the hours being from noon to 8 p.m. After daily routine, including question period, of course, we will be dealing with government bills number 81, 82, 84, 86, 87, and 88 in Committee of the Whole House. We will also be dealing with private and local bills, and we will look at bill number 90. We will also do some other business if the opposition parties so allow, and address and reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The motion is that the House does now rise to meet again tomorrow, May the 15th, between the hours of noon and 8 p.m. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. We stand adjourned.